Hey, what's going on? Well, today I'm gonna talk about the Nubia Z70 Ultra, which looks like a phone from future. This is ByteForge and let's get to the video. For those who don't know, Nubia is the same company that makes the Red Magic phones. And today I'm gonna talk about a few aspects of this phone, starting with the design. Now this phone looks like it really came from 2060. It's futuristic. Now we got a 6.85-inch AMOLED display on top of an aluminium frame which is matte, thankfully. Now on the right side of the phone, we get the red power button which is textured. On the same side but the bottom, we get the camera button. Now I wondered, where did I see it before? Oh yeah, Sony and Apple, of course. Now on the bottom, we can see the charging port alongside the SIM slot tool, which unfortunately doesn't have the SD card slot, which is a bummer. On the left side, we can see the switch slider, which can be mapped to do various tasks. Such a cool option to have. Now on the back, we can see the sort of same camera design as the previous generation. It's a triple camera setup and I ain't gonna complain about it because I love this design. You know, it kinda reminds me of the old camera styles, which is unique and nostalgic to me. Now the back glass is matte and soft, which gives it more of a premium look. It comes in three colors, black, yellow and Starry Night, which is my favorite so far. Okay, now let's get to the display. The Nubia Z70 Ultra features a 6.85-inch 1.5K-ish AMOLED display with 144Hz of refresh rate. And I think it's the same display as the Red Magic 10 Pro. I don't know. Now the reason that I said 1.5K-ish is because it's not exactly Quad HD. It's 1216 by 2688. Now the edges are so thin which makes it pleasant to watch a video, and it helps the phone to show its flagship aspects more. And as you can see, there is no camera cutout on the top. That means that we got an under-display front-facing camera. Now the brightness is around 2000 nits, which is okay for a flagship nowadays, but I mean 2000 nits is pretty much okay for out there usage. And we got HDR10 as well, which is pretty cool. And about the protection, Nubia is using the Lung C durable glass. I don't know what that name is supposed to mean, but it's durable. And the display is manufactured by BOE, the same company that made the display of the OnePlus 13. Alright, now it's time to talk about the battery. The Nubia Z70 Ultra has a 6150 mAh battery, which supports up to 60 watt of fast charging, and you can charge your phone from 10 to 100% for like 40 or 45 minutes, which is amazing. And hey, the charger is in the box, something which is rare nowadays. Alongside the charging speed, the battery itself is pretty good. If you're a gamer and play some kinda heavy games like the Call of Duty Mobile or the PUBG Mobile, I gotta say this phone can easily last around 5 or 6 hours, considering the fact that this phone got the best processor in an Android device and you can play the games at maxed out graphics with ease. And if you're a normal user, this phone can easily last a full day, or even more if you're a light user, like scrolling on social media, playing a bunch of videos, or I don't know, texting or calling your friends or taking a bunch of pictures. This phone can easily last a day and a half. It uses the same technology as the other phones like the OnePlus 13, which is the silicon carbon, which lets you to have a higher capacity battery and a smaller form factor. Imagine seeing this on an iPhone. Jesus. Alright, now let's get to the cameras. The Nubia Z70 Ultra, as I said, features a triple camera setup in the back. Now the main camera, which is the sweet here, is a 35mm 50MP shooter, which has the variable aperture and lets you to control the aperture. Sweet spot here is a 35mm 50MP shooter, which has the variable aperture and lets you to, which is capable of taking macro shots as well. Control the aperture between f1.6 and f4.0. Now this variable aperture thing lets you to control the focus of the subject manually and precisely. Like for example, you can choose the top of the subject, which is not that much related to the video, to be in focus, and the rest of the subject would be blurred out. It's pretty useful if you're taking pictures from your products. And as for the ultra wide, we also have a 50MP shooter, which is capable of taking macro shots as well. But unfortunately, it doesn't have the optical image stabilization. It got EIS, which is the electronic image stabilization, which is better than nothing. And the third lens is telephoto. It's a 3.3x 64MP lens, which is 80mm. And it lets you to zoom up to 50 times, but if I was you, I wouldn't really trust the zoom that much. It's more of a flex if I'm being honest, you know, and the highest zoom that you can take a good picture out of it is around 10 or 15 times. As you can see from the sample shots, the pictures are solid, the portraits are good, and the zooms are pretty okay. And since we got a 16MP under display front facing camera, you can't rely on it that much. and we still haven't reached the point to say the under-display cameras are as good as the proper ones. Now as for the videos, this phone is capable of shooting 8K only for the main lens, and 4K and 120 FPS on the main camera and the telephoto, which lets you to take high-quality slow-motion videos, something we've seen on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and other companies soon. And the stabilization is pretty decent and the overall clarity is good, but not as good as the other flagships though, maybe next year. And there's a noticeable color shift thing when you try to switch between lenses during the video, which is pretty annoying to be honest, and it ruins the video, in my opinion of course. And the overall camera package of this phone is pretty okay. It's a flagship, but not a flagship for camera. I mean, you're paying around $800 for a phone which has a camera like a basic flagship killer, which is a bummer. That's why you shouldn't really compare the Nubia Z70 Ultra to the iPhone 16 Pro or the Galaxy S24 Ultra or the Pixel 9 Pro. Like for the photos, sometimes the dynamic range is messed up, and for the front-facing camera, it doesn't have a good picture quality, of course because it's an under-display camera. Now as for software, I gotta say it's pretty good. It got no bloatware when you set it up, which is a good thing, and it basically looks like the stock Android. And this phone is gonna be supported for 3 years, which is a good thing. Not as good as the other flagships though, because some companies are promising around 7 or 8 years. But yeah, the overall software is pretty satisfying and good. Now let's get to the performance. Nubia is using the Snapdragon 8 Elite on the Z70 Ultra, which means that we got a smooth experience whether it's the UI, the multitasking, or playing games. Like you can play the PUBG Mobile or the Call of Duty Mobile at the highest graphics possible without any issue. Although this phone shows a lot of similarities with the Red Magic 10 Pro, it lacks the liquid metal cooling and the active physical fan. And the result of this lack of cooling is that this phone gets hot. I mean, really hot. Like around 50 degrees Celsius on the frame and around 45 in the back, which is not good. And I think it's more of an optimization thing because, you know, the processor is pretty new and the game developers and the app developers have to optimize their apps and games for the new processor. So it takes time. If you're gonna play some heavy games like the Genshin Impact or the Call of Duty Mobile, this phone gets hot. You'd better use an external fan which sticks to the back of the phone and it cools down the phone as soon as possible because you don't want your hands to be burnt. Now as for the storage options, we get 256 GB of storage with 12 GB of RAM, a 512 GB RAM with 16 GB of RAM, and a 1 TB option with 24 GB of RAM. And I wish we had an option to pick the 512 one with the 24 GB of RAM. I mean, the combination would be crazy. Maybe next year. And oh Jesus. Thank you for watching the video, and if you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and like the video. And drop your nice comment and I'll try to answer to all of them. This is ByteForge and see you in the next one. Jesus, what happened?